I'm your host, Jeff Sart. We're going to take you behind the scenes with the craft distillers who are pouring their heart and soul into crafting the next version of America's spirit. This is the Great American Whiskey Cookers.
Welcome to this edition of the Great American Whiskey Cookers. Hey, if you haven't already, like us on Facebook, Instagram. You can also go to the website, buy some really cool merchandise, or you can step it up and go to our Patreon site, become a member, and you can get access to all sorts of fun stuff. So I am sitting with Adam and Laura Stumpf, and we're sitting here in one of your 4 barrel rick houses, right? You have 4 of them.
We have 4 locations.
4 locations.
2 rick houses.
2 rick houses.
Yep.
Oh, wait a minute. 4 locations, 2 rick houses.
You got it.
How does that work?
Distillery plus Rickhouse location 1. Then you've got Rickhouse number 2.
Okay.
Then you've got the Visitor Experience Center, and then you've got the packaging plant.
Okay, so 2 locations with rick houses.
You got it.
All right.
Yes.
You were really throwing your...
I know.
We haven't even started drinking yet.
Yeah. Now, I didn't do well in math in school, but I knew right then right to start. 4 locations, 2
You're
rick
like,
houses.
wait a minute.
It doesn't work.
Right.
Nope.
Okay, so
It's distiller, man.
yeah,
It's fine.
this still. Let's talk about your barrels in your rick house. The rick house looks like it's typical Kentucky style rick house with
Yep.
the way it's laid out. Did you build this?
No, absolutely not. We hired
And the 4 guys that did it.
Yeah, we hired trained professionals to build it for sure.
Okay.
But I mean, we did the design, you could say. Not that there's really much design to it. It's 4x6s and 4x4s bolted together.
Sure.
But yeah, it's kind of the traditional layout where you've got, your ricks, barrels stored on side. We go 6 high, so technically 2 ricks high or whatever. But yeah, we figured that, we'd get into aging later, but we knew we wanted to age barrels horizontally. And it was just one of the things we wanted to do. And ricking is a pain to build, absolutely. And sometimes a pain when you have to get to the 12th barrel all the way in the back.
Holy shnikes, that goes back a long way. I didn't even notice that before.
Yeah. But it allows for airflow. It allows for effective temperature fluctuation, all that stuff.
Still, if you can't already tell, this is a non-temperature controlled building. Where it's June. We're in the rick house, and it's hot. It's damn hot.
It is.
Right? So you get some pretty serious temperature fluctuations.
Absolutely. People talk about Kentucky having the perfect climate for aging whiskey. You want to see wild weather, come to St. Louis. I think we'll be just fine.
Yeah, because we were sweating earlier when we were setting up, and it's still warm in here. We got a fan going behind us.
Yeah. Last week, I think the lows were in the 50s.
Yeah.
And we hit highs in the upper 80s. It's insane.
So you're moving. And in the wintertime, how cold does it get here?
I mean, we'll dip into the negatives on rare occasion, for sure. So yeah, I mean, we'll draw a line across, and we're about in line with Louisville. So I mean, very similar.
So what else do I need to know about your storage, your rick house, and what you have sitting here? Anything that I haven't asked you that I really should know as someone walking into Old Monroe Distillery?
There's a few things. I think one of the biggest ones is that people talk about palletized barrel storage, and there's certainly a case to be made for it. I know a lot of whiskey that is aged. I've had a lot of great whiskey from palletized barrel storage warehouses. We choose to do it horizontally instead of vertically, and the reason is because we don't just have heads that have the same char profile as the staves, right? So a lot of times we'll have toasted heads on our barrels. So if you think about it, now we're gonna stand this barrel on end just like this, right? You've got a toasted head and a charred stave. Well, as soon as you start evaporating, you're gonna lose all the toast of that top head. And now you're just losing a little char, a little char, a little char, a little char, for however long it sits there. Versus if that barrel's on its side, like one of these, you're gonna lose whatever, 10% your first year. You're losing a little toast, little char, a little toast, little char. It's all about building that complexity, which is why we decided to make the investment in horizontal storage.
And how many barrels are in this particular facility that we're in altogether?
There's about 2,000 in here. So this is all of our older stuff. We didn't always have the rick house. Honestly, this building didn't come until, 4 years after we started. We stored up front. We started in 15-gallon barrels, went to 30s, then eventually 53s. We were on pallets, just kind of in this back area, just because that's what we had readily available to us, right? Kind of the farm mentality of things.
Sure.
It's pretty use what we have. And then eventually, as we started to stack up barrels and we needed the space, like, okay, it's time to actually put a solution in place for barrel storage. So,
Interesting. So you're using 53-gallon barrels.
yep,
Are you using 53-gallon barrels pretty much exclusively now?
we are, absolutely.
And we're sitting on small barrels,
We are,
right?
yes.
So you still use these at all for anything?
These for storing gin and setting on.
Okay.
But no, I think
We get seats.
we literally have 4 15-gallon barrels. They're all sitting right here. I think one of them might have a corn whiskey in it. They were all something in their previous life, bourbon probably. And now they've all got barrel-aged gin in it that's been sitting in them for like 5 years. I think we had a handful of 30-gallon barrels left. But yeah, all 53s.
And again, you're making how many barrels a week?
We shoot for 50.
Yeah.
Shoot for 50 barrels a week right now.
So roughly per year for you guys yourself, you do contract distilling as well, but for Old Monroe Distilling, you guys are laying up or putting up how many barrels a year, roughly?
500 a year for ourselves.
Okay.
Yep, that's the plan.
Very interesting. So most of your barrels are coming from independent state,
They are.
and you said you also have another cooperage that you're buying barrels from.
Yep, we use Zach Cooperage down in Kentucky, and we've got a really cool project going with them. The farm where we're building the event venue, we had it logged before we started because we're putting some lakes in over there and all that stuff. And we sent a truckload of white oak logs down to Zach, and Zach is processing those logs for us to turn into our whiskey barrels. So
you're going to have barrels made from logs from your area, from your right where
exactly,
you're at.
grain from our farm, trees from our farm, whiskey from our distillery, all right here.
We're taking grain to glass to a different level.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Man, you're taking it kind of serious.
Yes,
is what
we
it
are.
sounds like.
Yes. Even the trees.
So let's talk about barrel entry proof then, and the whiskey going into the barrel, and how long it's going to sit in there. What is your barrel entry proof?
When?
That's always a
We're not-
fun one too, because that's different.
It's
than
changed
most
for
as
us.
well.
Yeah. So originally we started at 115. We did bump up to 120. I'll say this: we've gone as low as 88 and as high as 125, and we've tried a lot of stuff in between. But we've come across data throughout our journey, and there's specific science around optimal points of barrel entry. So it's pretty interesting. We were at 110 for a long time, and I really liked 110 because, you know, you could get some that shoot up in proof and pop into the 120s pretty easily. Generally, you're not dipping below about 102. So it made for a really nice single barrel, right? It's nice sipping proof normally. But also when we bottle small batch at 90 proof, we're not having to add a whole lot of water to get down to 90 proof. So that's one of the reasons we didn't go all the way down to 80 proof. So we kind of shrunk that range of having to add water to our small batch bourbon. So 110 was a good place for us. But what we've done now, and our MO for really about the last 2 years or so, we go in at 2 different proofs. So we'll split a batch in half. Half of it goes in at 105. Half of it goes in at 120. So you kind of have 120 is your traditional, you know, you're going to get a lot of those traditional notes. 105, you get a completely different whiskey. And different whiskey, not just in the sense that the proof is lower. The thing you have to keep in mind about barrel extraction is we're dissolving things out of that wood, right? Some things are more soluble in ethanol. Some things are more soluble in water. So that 105 is extracting and dissolving completely different compounds than that 120 proof. So not only do they sip differently because of their alcohol content, but they're like, at the end of the day, they came out of the same, off the still the same day, came out of the same tank, 2 different proofs, you know, so different times, obviously. But we can throw those barrels in a single rick, and yeah, you get the whole single barrel phenomenon, but I'm telling you, you will think that they're from 2 different distilleries. They taste so different. It's absolutely insane.
Crazy.
So, but the other thing that we like is we like the ability to build a flavor system. And that's what that allows us to do.
So there's a profile that you're going for, a flavor profile, and then that system that you're talking.
Absolutely. Right. Yeah. And I mean, for us, it's really about how round, imagine a tasting wheel, right? Yep. A balanced bourbon, you would basically have a perfect circle around that thing, sweet and spicy and all these things, right? So, you know, we want that bourbon to be balanced for sure, but it gives us more building blocks to be able to achieve that. And it also gives us super, super unique barrels to put into our single barrel program. So for store selections or distillery picks or whatever, you know, You can have 103 barrel proof pick. You can have the highest proof barrel that came out of here was 146, I think. Yeah. And it was a bourbon. It was not a light whiskey. Put in the barrel at 120 proof, came out at 146.
Hazmat.
It was hazmat, yes.
It wasn't ours.
Yeah, well, it was a contract client, but it was really good whiskey.
He's gotten both hazmat.
Yeah, he's Magic Dutch.
So how long do you age your whiskey?
Till the whiskey tells us it's ready. So for small batch,
You're taking the maker's mark approach.
yeah, exactly. We don't have a specific target as far as age goes.
Okay.
Other than the minimum, we will not put anything in the bottle that's under 4 years old. So small batch right now is basically 4.5 up to about 7 years old.
All whiskey geeks want to know angel share. What is it? Do you know? Yeah.
The percent.
Where you at?
I'm gonna say if we start with call it 55-ish proof gallons in a barrel, after 4 years we're averaging 40 to 44. Usually it's kind of the neighborhood where we're shooting for. But I mean, this rickhouse is not that big, and it ages whiskey entirely differently from this corner up to that corner up there.
You can tell the difference.
Yeah, absolutely. So southwest corner over there, it obviously gets the most sun and all that. The steam boiler is also over there, so it gets a lot of variation. So we do see a lot higher angel share kind of on this side of the rickhouse versus over here. We do see quite a bit higher yields. Shoot, we had a contract barrel that came out of here that was like, it was 4 years old. It was a liqueur, so it was a lower proof, but I want to say it was like 78, 79%, something like that, total yield. There was a lot of whiskey left in it for sure.
Wow. That's impressive. Very cool.
He was lucky. We've changed our distillation system as we've gone. I mean, honestly, upgraded as we could. So we started the thing on a bank loan. I think our wedding jewelry is still collateral for the bank loans. So
Yeah, I mean, you said you were bootstrapped when you started this, so you didn't have big money behind you. You didn't have a lot of investors. You did this yourself.
Absolutely. It's much more like the family farm approach as opposed to the venture capital approach. I mean, we started small with what we could, and we've tried to expand over time just as we've been able to. And it's just, about constant reinvestment into the business, and in barrels, honestly. But when we started out, we could make 1 barrel a week, and it's pretty difficult to make a lot of whiskey, but B, old whiskey where you can only put up 1 barrel a week.
Yeah.
So that was kind of the driver behind the expansion.
Fantastic. Love it. Where do they find you? How do they get in touch with you?
Instagram, Facebook, and drinkoldmonroe.com.
Drink Old Monroe. And you're right here, right outside of Columbia, Illinois. Right?
Absolutely.
So we hope you enjoyed this episode of Great American Whiskey Cookers and the conversation with Adam and Laura. You can find us on Facebook and Instagram, like our videos. You can go to our website, buy some cool merchandise, YouTube. You can like our videos and share those. We would really appreciate it. Or you can really step up your sport and go to Patreon and become a member. And you never know, you might get invited out to the Bourbon Bunker for a tasting and get some really cool stuff. Until next time, if you can't be good at it. See you.
I actually bought a mini ethanol cloner that went out of business. For whatever reason, they had a food-grade milling system there. So this thing's completely automated, takes your grain right out of the field, goes through multiple cleaning stages, milling, and you can control it. From like grits consistency down into baby cup on the fly. It's insane.